right, guys. Today I have Niels Vandecasteele. Niels is the co-founder of Sunday. Sunday is a premium fashion brand based in Belgium that really helps translate your company's brand into kind of stylish merchandise that goes along with that brand and really helps you build a community. So glad to have you on. Niels, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. This is my first time as a guest in an American podcast. So this is quite new for me. I've done a lot of them in Europe here. But I'm very interested in having this conversation with you, mainly because, as you told, we are very into merchandise, into swag. We call it company fashion. But to give you a bit of context, in Europe, it's not that common, or it wasn't that common. It was quite looked down upon, and this is a bit the idea where we started. Like in America, they are doing this in a great way. They are doing it as a viable fashion line, and
Yeah.
we can't manage this in Europe. And this is a bit of the origin and the philosophy we maintain.
That's awesome. So with that, what was it that made you push against that culture of it being frowned upon? Like, what made you say, you know what, I want to establish this and make this a thing here in Europe?
Yeah, so me and my co-founder Steven, we actually started in artist merchandise, and more specifically for DJs. So nightlife, and well, you probably know Tomorrowland. So it's Belgium, and we had like the whole boom of nightlife scene of festivals, and we said, okay, every metal band, every rock band has their own merchandise table and some people working there. But if we go to nightlife, to DJs, there's nobody doing this. You couldn't buy. We did like research of the DJ Mag Top 100, and I think only 30 of the 100 artists who had millions and millions of followers did merchandise in any way, which was often very, very poor quality.
Right.
So this was the original business idea, and we started making some snapbacks. We started making T-shirts for these DJs, and we immediately saw from them that their expectations were a lot higher than the regular oversized fruit of the loom band shirt. Yeah, so these were these DJs, which are a bit of fashion. They are a bit of a lifestyle. And we have these festivals like Tomorrowland where people go fitness all year around to look good on Tomorrowland. So they want their outfit also to be top notch.
Yeah.
So this segment in the market immediately pushed us to go above and beyond in quality, like good quality, good prints, nice designs, service that can match the user experience in normal days now, not something from the 80s where you fill in a form and you get 3 weeks later a response.
Yeah.
So these were a couple of things that didn't look revolutionary for us, but for our industry it kind of was. One of the examples I always give is we always make a visual representation, like a visual mock-up of how the clothing is going to look, which seems very normal to do. But when we started, we were the only ones who did it, because often it was just you send your logo to a screen printer and said, well, put it in the middle somewhere around 8 centimeters or something, and you will see if it's here, if it's here, if it's wherever it's positioned, and never twice the same. So this was a bit of these very random things that were accepted in the market, which were not logical at all because we didn't come from that market. And we just saw incrementally like we need to upgrade all these things, which evolved now to us having a five head fashion design team, which actually designs in 3D, for example, which designs from patterns which could match to H&M or Zara or whatever. Like this level of design is what the team is offering. So this was a whole journey. We didn't start with, we want to start a fashion company, because my co-founder and I are not really specifically these fashion gurus or whatever, but we learned that the tools available for the fashion market, like nice designs, picking fabrics, doing colors, like cooler fittings, like oversized urban baggy, like if you went to the promotional market, it was just, this is the plain t-shirt, and you can have it in 155 GSM, you can have it in 175 GSM, and that was the choices you had. Here are the 7 colors you can choose from, and you put a print on front and a print on the back, and that's it. That should serve 80% of the market. And we decided, like, okay, we want to go for these companies who build their own brand so carefully, so advanced. We want to give them these opportunities in fashion, to translate, as you explained in the beginning, to translate their brand into physical clothing their ambassadors, their stakeholders can wear.
That's really cool, and I love that you identified. You said, okay, 80% of the market can get served kind of the cookie cutter way, and we're aiming for that 20% that isn't looking for the cookie cutter way. I think that's sometimes not even intuitive for a lot of entrepreneurs. You're looking at your total addressable market, and you're like, how do I get everybody? And being able to narrow down to, I have a specific customer in mind, I think is really smart. So let's kind of step back, and you mentioned you guys aren't really kind of fashion people. It seems like you kind of just noticed this problem and kind of saw an opportunity. What were the first conversations like with you and Steve? Like, what was that first action of, like, are we doing this? Like, what did you guys, how did you guys like truly cement the idea?
We met when we were, I think, 13, 14 years old in soccer. We played together in the local football team here. And then Steven stopped the football to become a DJ. So he became quite a famous DJ in Belgium. So he had his network, his experience. And from the other side, so he also organized events, stuff like that. And my education was in graphic design, video design, web development, and everything. So we kind of worked together for the graphic design of the events, the website of the events, the video ads, and so on. So we worked kind of professionally together in that way. And well, the idea actually started from, he was doing as a DJ merchandise. So he was doing it himself. So he made like these foam hands, beach balls. He made t-shirts. We have like an old picture here. I can maybe send it to you after the video edit. There's like this picture of Steven at a festival. He asked 40 friends to join him, and we all were wearing his audiophonic t-shirt, which he made all these different colors. So it was really cool. So he was doing it and was like the only one. And he was getting known for it, because when he was at the main stage, suddenly you could see all these t-shirts, all these foam hands in the audience. So like these event organizers were like, who is this audiophonic guy? How does he have so many fans? But actually he just was the only one who was giving visual representation to the fans. So it looked like everybody was there for audiophonic, but he was just the only one with the tools for them to make themselves identify with him. And from my side, I always loved going out. I was a huge fan of Avicii, Tim Burke, who has sadly passed away. And from the other side, I got my Tomorrowland tickets. I was going to see him on the main stage. I was trying to buy a t-shirt, and it wasn't possible. So there weren't any available, not online, not sold out, not anything. He just didn't have t-shirts. He was like number 3 of DJ Mag, top 100 at that point, millions of fans, globally touring all the biggest festivals. And you couldn't buy a single t-shirt from this guy who had millions of fans. And like these two worlds connected, like the big guys aren't doing it, and Steven, who is just below the really big ones, is being very successful with it. So we got a solution, we got a market, we put it together. We met at a bar on a Monday evening here in our hometown, said, okay, I did the math, we can do this. But the business model was still different then, because we approached it as a pure merchandise. So we were going to design the items, take stock, sell it online, and the artist was going to get a commission. But after a couple of months, we immediately saw that it would be way too expensive to grow like that, because we had all the risk. And 2, the earnings for the artists weren't big enough in this commission model. because they only had a few percent, because we took all the risk. We had to take most of the margin. And the problem was that they were paid 1,000 euros or dollars for a gig, but they would have to sell 500 or 400 t-shirts to get the same amount of money, which wasn't going to happen with these smaller DJs. So the business model, as you said, you spend a lot of time on your business model. We made everything, calculated everything, the growth, and then we put it in reality, and we saw, okay, this is not going to work. And we flipped the model. We were going to become a service supplier for artists who aren't going to do it themselves. We are going to offer design, we are going to offer production, and we can even offer the e-commerce web shop and logistics, but we are never going to take the stock risk. And this was the key moment that the business model flipped and we started growing really fast.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'm curious. Had you guys already started collecting inventory? Like you guys were already pulling things in, being like, the math doesn't work? Or did you realize that before you actually started purchasing?
No, we started seeing that after we had signed around 15 artists. Then we started saying like, okay, they are only selling 2-3 items a week. And that was just not enough. We did the math, and we would need thousands of artists, which all need to be managed, which all need to be stock risk. So we saw, if we want to grow to this number, we will have triple in stock, which is dead money actually. So there was a big conclusion, and combining that with upfront payment was one of the biggest moves, because our sector was really known for bad payers. Yeah, because all these screen printers are not all the best administrative people, and they often made a little mistake, which happened that you get discussions around money. And because the trust was so low, clients were used to, well, we'll pay after we get the delivery, 30 plus days or 60 plus days. Which made that you actually have to pre-finance almost 90 days of stock. It's never your property, but you pre-finance it. And from day one, we said, okay, we are going to personalize items. So this means that if you don't pay, we can't come and take them back and sell them to anybody else. In the market, if you're not buying your t-shirts, nobody else is going to buy. Like Facebook is not going to buy Google t-shirts. It's not going to happen. So with this, we could negotiate upfront payment, which helped us really monitor our cash flow and make sure we didn't have to start playing bank for our clients, which also helped us to grow a lot without funding, because otherwise you need the funding to monitor the cash flow. And now we have our clients were actually funding us.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. That's really smart. You didn't have to raise capital because of the nature of your business. It's a customized product, and it justifies saying the money up front. Now, did you just, so the podcast, it's a combination of your journey and then also tactical advice. So I might ask for some of the nitty-gritty details. I'm curious, did you do any holdback? Did you say, okay, 80% up front, the 20% upon delivery? Did you guys do anything like that? Or did you just say 100% up front?
We started with 100% up front. Okay. Like we design your stuff. So we design your stuff, you agree on the offer, you pay, we go in production. So this was the general flow. Right now, as we are working with bigger and bigger and bigger parties, if you're doing a 200K deal, nobody's going to pay 100% upfront. Sadly, not yet. But it's often a big chunk upfront, because we actually have to buy the materials and the fabrics and reserve the production spaces and reserve the technical, everything technically in the production process. So we most of the time, we keep the largest chunk upfront with a little safety net at delivery often.
Got it. Got it. So I'm curious. You guys started with a conversation at the bar.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you guys to start looking around and saying, "I think we did this. I think this is. I think this is gonna work."
I think it was around 2 years. So
Okay.
we did it 2 years while still working full time. Because
Okay.
as I said, we weren't experienced in any way in this industry. So this
Yeah.
means that we had to learn everything. We had to get to know suppliers. We get to know our clients. We get to know how to actually sell something,
Mhm.
how to actually do the accounting. Like we did everything. So we have to figure everything out. So, and because we didn't have funding, we didn't get any money from the
Yeah.
business. We only started earning some money, and it was really like half of minimum wage of like regular minimum, and that
Yeah.
was after 2 years. We could start paying us half of minimum wage, and we
Yeah.
jumped in and went full time in the business, and then it really started to take off. But we needed 2 years of trial and error to kind of know that, oh, if you work with a crappy screen printer, maybe it's a bit cheaper, but it will
Mhm.
wash off after 3 times, and then your clients are angry.
Yeah.
Or like all these basic things, because at the end of the day it's still a physical product with a lot of complexity. Like fashion at the level we do it is very complex, because you need to take into account the material it's made of, the dyes it used to dye it, the patterns are made, the sizing, like everything is very complex and very, like if I ask you what is a nice shirt,
Mhm.
it will be very subjective.
Yeah.
So we have to find like the common denominators in, okay, a good shirt is like this weight, kind of,
Yeah.
and this fitting, and this is on average. Because if we go to the Netherlands, we have to move one size because people are bigger there. And if we go to Germany, it has to be a little bit wider sizing because they
Mhm.
like it a bit more baggy. So we
Yeah.
have to really localize also our products,
Yeah.
which can make it quite complex. So this is a concept of how complex clothing is, and how steep the learning curve was from starting. Okay, we will order 25 printed shirts at a screen printer, until now we design patterns. We got a request from a client who wants to do their own full custom windbreakers with inner lining, with specific technical materials. That's the level we work at now.
Got
That's
it.
possible.
Got it. So you guys, you mentioned you guys didn't have any experience. Did you guys have advisors, mentors? Like, how did you just YouTube it? Like, how did you figure it out?
We had a lot of advisors, let's say,
Okay.
but all casual connections.
Got it.
So we both started, we just started doing it. Our clients were our advisors because they gave us instant feedback.
Yeah.
um, we had a couple of initiatives locally in Belgium and Flanders that help startups. So you get
Mhm.
some feedback from more experienced people. But the complexity of our business is that the way we approach this is totally different. So all sector related experience is actually negative, because they would
Mm.
say, well, you don't need mock-ups. We've sold for 25 years without mock-ups. You don't need them.
Right.
So from the sector, it is very difficult. And then at one point, we really started hiring experts who came from fashion industry, for example, who ran their own companies in a specific segment, who came from really big companies strategically, for example. So we really, and just a quick tactic we used to
Mhm.
do in the beginning is like every Friday we would invite an entrepreneur for lunch,
Mm.
and we would pay it. And we just made a list. I made a list. Steven made a list, and we called each other week somebody for lunch, and we learned a lot
Yeah.
during these conversations. Yeah.
No, that's super smart. That's really smart. Honestly, that's partially why I started a podcast because I was like, let me just start talking to entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
As I got into it and said, like, what am I actually getting myself into? So no, I like that. Take people to lunch. Well, if I'm
Yeah.
in Belgium, I'm only going to take you to lunch. I promise.
Certainly. Just let me know. And when I'm in the States, I'll ring you up.
Okay, so what you've talked about some of the complexities of the fashion industry. I'm curious, was that a surprise to you, or were there some other surprises or misconceptions you had around this business, being an entrepreneur more broadly?
Let's say we are always positively naive. So everything always seems to be a lot harder than we estimate it is going to be. But I think that's maybe a trait of entrepreneurship, that you always look on the bright side of things and don't dig too deep in what could go wrong or might go wrong, because otherwise you always stay in the same circle. But the complexity, of course, we underestimated it incredibly, because we thought, well, how difficult can it be? It's just 2 or 3 pieces of fabric. You print something on it and you sew it together. It's not that complex. And that's actually how our clients perceive it. So a lot of our clients still think that a t-shirt just rolls out of a machine. Like you push a button, you program it, and then it rolls out of the machine like that in 30 seconds. But they can't always understand. We try to educate them as much as possible. But on the other hand, it's also not really their problem how it's made, as long as it's correctly made and in the right circumstances. Like they don't want to know what seam goes in there, or that's not really relevant for them. They want awesome shirts people will love to wear and keep wearing. So these complexities are you always, I always see it like these different levels or these tiers, and then suddenly you hit a ceiling, and then you discover, whoa, there was a whole world beyond this, and you're a novice again. Like we went from doing no business to a little bit of business. Then we started to run a team, 2 people, 3 people. Now we're with 55 people in 5 countries. So internationally managing different languages, different cultures, digitizing everything of internal communication. With the products, for example, we started just ordering somewhere some printed t-shirts. Then we started sourcing the t-shirts ourselves, ordering the printing, and then we started, okay, how can we make this t-shirt now? So we have to start learning about sourcing fabrics, about different washing finishings, like all this technical stuff. Where can things go wrong, because it's a whole supply chain. For example, a single t-shirt passes around 12 to 13 suppliers. Like 12 to 13 different companies work on this t-shirt, like the person who made the yarn, like the cotton farm, like the who knit the yarn into the material, the company that dyes the material, the company that cuts the material, the company that sews the material, that prints it, that makes the labels, that makes the thread for sewing, that makes the packaging, that makes the hang tags, that makes like all these different things. And like in the beginning, it's just taking a shirt out of a box and printing it. And we made it into 12 steps. And that's like the level of complexity it gets. So you need people who know this, can do this. And at the end of the day, it is a lot better economical position for us, because we are unique in this, offering this to the market. So on the other hand, you can't do it with 2 guys in the living room anymore, because it takes so many experiences.
Right. So what was, I hadn't even thought about breaking down a t-shirt into all of the companies that touch it. That's really interesting. Talk to me about that first hire, right? You mentioned, it took a couple of years before you could pay yourself half a minimum wage. How did you, first of all, come up with the funds to hire someone? Were you that profitable? And then 2, how did you convince them to take what seemingly is probably a low salary? Because you're not taking that much of a salary yourself.
Well, they were paid more than us. So we paid our employees correct salaries, but we just took less. So to give you an idea, in October 15, we went full time for the company, and we hired our first employee in February 16. Okay. So 3 months later, because it was really interesting, the government released a new bill where you could you didn't have to pay social taxes on your first hire to stimulate companies to hire their first people, which made, because Belgium is, as the last numbers came out, is the most taxed country in the world. So like, if you earn 100 euros here, you have to pay almost 47 in taxes. Yeah, so it's quite expensive to hire someone. If you want to give somebody a decent wage, you have to pay double. Actually, but that on the side, because you can see that's quite a challenge to then make your first hire, because they are like very expensive. But with this new bill, it became a lot cheaper, so you could take the risk. So we hired our first, it was a guy, Jonathan. We hired him. We actually had, I think, around 15 candidates. So it was quite, we got quite a lot of candidates for the job. It was a sales job. And we hired a guy, and then suddenly you have to start managing somebody. And we convinced him, because he was also a DJ. He believed in the merchandise of DJs. So he was really connected to the vision. And he stayed with us for, I guess, around 2 years, which he said, like, this is getting way too big. I just wanted, with a couple of guys in the living room was my dream, and now it's too big, so I'm going to do something else. So we sadly lost him.
But that's awesome that you were able to find someone who, like you said, was connected to the mission and connected to kind of what you guys were doing. And I think that that's just so important. Because I talk to some folks, and you'll never find someone that cares as much as the founder or the creators. But if you can find some super fans, that's super powerful. No, that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, that's one of our key rules in recruitment now also, is that they actually have to care about or something fashion related, or something merchandise related. Like, we got a guy here who's our head of demand generation, who he was head of merchandise from the biggest concert hall in Belgium. And you see, like, you meet this passion, or you connect with this passion, and then everything else can be taught. It's like, okay, I want to reach something. I believe in this sustainability, for example. We got a lot of people working for us because they really believe in the sustainability part of the fashion industry. Like, we have to do something different instead of all these containers from China, or we have to do something different. And then you can see, you can really attract good talent, good people at an affordable price. Like, they are well compensated, as they should, but you're not paying double or triple times, because they don't care where they end up.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about your growth as a company kind of across the world, in your transition into a people manager. How was that? How was learning how to a new industry, figuring this thing out, and then all of a sudden you're managing multiple people? Like, how did you guys deal with that transition?
Well, that's always the biggest challenge, and the biggest rewards are always people related. And as I told, we started as 2 entrepreneurs doing everything ourselves, and that's great. It's a great skill to have, but it can be a great challenge to transform to a people manager. Because you're used to jumping in and taking care of it, because you used to do everything. And this is some of the big challenges we've been working through. Like, how do we become serving managers? Like, not, we can do this, just do it because we did it, and now you have to do it. But like, okay, these are the targets, or this is the goal. These are the resources you get. Like, one person in your team, you get this much amount of money, and we want to see reporting on this basis. And if you need anything from us, we are going to challenge you, and we are going to support you if you need us. And that's like the holy grail, I would say, in management. And we are moving towards that, with a lot of humps and bumps and mistakes, of course. And when everything is going good, there are no humps or bumps. Then it's easy to manage people. If everything's going good, there's no difficulty at all in managing people.
Right.
But then when things are going bad, for example, or you get challenges or you get disappointing numbers, for example, how do you keep yourself from taking over the project or jumping over a manager, like diving 2 levels lower? Like, okay, I'm going to help you write this newsletter, but there are 2 people doing that already. So that's one of the biggest a personal big challenge, because you want to see things move fast. You don't want to create a political organization or too strict of levels. But on the other hand, if you're going to do everything yourself, you also don't need an organization. So you need to leverage the strengths of these people and invest in them and help them be the best version of themselves and what they could reach.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's just really good advice, because I think you said it well. There's a power and blessing that comes with having to do everything yourself as a early entrepreneur, but it becomes a little bit of a curse on the side of, if someone's not doing something the way you want it to be done, your natural inclination is to just jump in, and that's no longer your role, and you're really going to do that at the cost of your company culture.
Yeah,
and
true.
that's a downside. So no, that's very well put. So let me just kind of ask generally, what's the challenge that you're trying to work through now, right? Like, things seem to be going swimmingly well. Like, what's the latest bump or hump in the road?
Well, for us, it's now really scaling the commercial organization. So we've been doing very well. We've got a good reach, but we have been tweaking and working for the last year, I would say, on a repeatable numbers-driven sales system. Because if you want to scale further, we were too dependent on only hiring superstars and the right people who know how everything to do. And this works in the beginning, but at a certain point, I would say around 10 to 15 salespeople, you can't monitor this anymore, because you need to build processes, you need to build KPIs they have to follow, you need to make the marketing plan that fits the sales system. You need to build an onboarding team, a sales enablement team. You need to do all these things, because the system, the revenue doesn't go up by adding more salespeople. So this was the problem we were having. Like, okay, we did, let's say, 1 million with 10 people, and then we do 1,100,000 with 13 people, and 1,200,000 with 16 people. Like, the curve was slowing down. And it is because there wasn't a system in place. Like, this is how you do a discovery call. This is how you do discovery meeting. This is how you present a deal. These are the numbers you need to reach. These are the people in the organization who will help you with every step. So we can drop in a new salesperson, teach them everything in 3 months, and they're on target.
Yeah.
And because our cost of sales was getting too high, actually, it was too expensive to land a deal, because there was too much time, too many people, and no organization. And this is one of the biggest challenge we have been tackling, where we are now, I would say, at 90% of, and last 10% is always the most difficult, of proving the system. Like, if we drop in this person plus one sales development rep plus X amount of marketing budget, we can guarantee this revenue and profit. And the moment we have this system, then it's basically just pouring in money, getting a value extra. And this is one of the key challenges.
It's so funny. I've had many of these conversations through the podcast and just with friends generally, and my former job as a management consultant. Businesses succeed. I would say businesses succeed and fail based off of the systems they have in place, without a doubt. Like, a lot of businesses focus on revenue, and that's great. But sustaining that revenue or scaling that revenue is really just about the system that you've put in place. And I love that you're close to figuring out that formula of, okay, I need to hire a person, I need to give them this much more budget, and I've got to give them this training, and I can guarantee that they will have some amount of success. Like that's the secret sauce. That's figuring it out.
Yeah. And then you adapt it per country, then you adapt it per different niche. So what solution we are going to pitch to what type of client, and then it's scalable, it's growable, and of course, the system gets more efficient along the way. Yeah. Like the best thing I always like about business is that it's never going to be as bad as now, like all the ratios. So it can only improve, or well, you have economic circumstances, but they have been quite bad also. Like we had COVID for 2 years, and if you're in merchandise, not the best thing to have. And now, of course, in Europe, we have the Ukraine-Russia crisis, which is economically also very challenging. So our philosophy is, if we can do it now from the most taxed country in the world, then we can do it anywhere at any time.
Right. So COVID, it just popped the question in my head. Like during the pandemic, I noticed a lot of companies were doubling down on sending swag to their employees, right? They were trying to, create a form of engagement by sending out materials. I'm curious, did you see the effect of that, or was it, were you guys seeing new sales or new opportunities come because it was a new way to engage companies or company employees?
It was quite limited, I would say, because it was, well, for a lot of companies, we did one run of swag, but most of them want to do like a box of cookies or just something to make the people feel better at home.
Yeah.
So it became more of, let's say, an event or an experience instead of the swag for, okay, let's wear it and be a team together. We did have a couple of those deals, but we actually survived COVID as a company by making face masks. So we, as we have the whole supply chain, we switched, I would say, from May 2020, we switched to face masks, but custom ones with branding, because we could do it. And we sold, I think, around 3 million face masks in 1 month. So like huge numbers, and it kept us going, but it also kept our suppliers going, because they were also being hit. Because the fashion industry wasn't ordering anymore. If nobody goes to the stores, they don't need new collections. And there were all these people. We are with 55 people, but we have around 500 people counting on us in production. So this means we also feel like a kind of responsibility towards them to make sure that their lines are also filled. So we covered COVID with that, and then it slowly picked up again with some of these remote activations. But you could also see that these things were very impulsive. And our production, because we do all these custom things, it takes 8 weeks, and they wanted something tomorrow. Like HR thought of, we need to send some swag, and they ordered something, and the next day it had to be delivered for the team. So there was no time, there was no strategy behind it. It wasn't sustainable, this model at this point. Right now, we have a lot more companies who say, okay, we work fully remote or 75% remote. We want to make merchandise a part of our company culture. And we take the time to design these things, to design the experience, to set up the internal web shop, and ship towards all possible countries. And that's a service we offer them. But this is sustainable because they already decided internally that it's not a gift, but part of the culture. Because in our business, the gifting is also a blessing and a curse. Because, it's Christmas, we have to give a gift. Really nice. We give everybody a weekender bag or something. It's really good revenue. But I can guarantee you next year, that company will have to give something else than clothing or a bag. It will have to give a coupon, or they'll have to give cinema tickets, or it has to have to give a Bluetooth speaker or something.
Yeah,
So
I've
this is
gotten those
also,
Bluetooth
yeah,
speakers, and
yeah.
they're never good. They're never good.
So it's also, the gifting is like,
Yeah.
it's nice revenue there, but it's not sustainable at all, because it's just a budget they have to spend, and they actually don't really care if it's spent with you or and that's one of the biggest challenges and things we've seen since COVID, is that our company completely changed in, oh, we have the best shirts, we have the best sweaters, to, okay, are you looking to create some kind of group feeling, team feeling around the goal of the company? Is your brand becoming a lifestyle? Is working at your company a lifestyle? Who are these people working there? And how can we bring them together internally and make sure that they can show off that they're part of your culture externally?
Right.
And once a company understands this, and this is for employees, but you can also do it for ambassadors or influencers, or if you're a whiskey brand, for all the people visiting your whiskey shop, or the ambassador program or whatever, then you have this sustainable way of doing marketing, because the shirt I'm wearing, the quality is so good, I'll wear it for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm a really big fan, I'm going to wear it every 2 weeks, for example. So you get these 25 times somebody wears your brand a year, times 10. And if I'm going to wear a Sunday shirt and I meet somebody in the street who has one day heard of Sunday or saw an ad or whatever, and we get in a conversation, you have like almost a conversation with a salesperson, because this person knows everything that's there to do. So I think the moment companies understand this, that you can have a really sustainable and long-term relationship with them.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I myself, I told you I'm gonna get your feedback on our podcast hoodies. But yeah, I definitely, it resonates when you say like clothing is part of the culture. It's not just about, free advertising or just kind of a gimmick gift. Like, I think it says a lot when someone's willing to put a brand on their chest, right?
Absolutely.
It means a lot. And so yeah, no, that's really cool. So I'm interested on the business side of things. You're international. You've got kind of people in multiple countries. Talk a little bit about the complexities that come with that, especially when you said the sizing. I don't even know how you figure out the sizing differences country to country. Like, I don't. That's kind of mind-blowing to me.
Well, it's customer feedback, basically. So we listen a lot to our customers. Everybody has a personal account manager, so you're always talking to a person. So this means you can have a conversation about things, and they can give feedback like the sizing wasn't that. It's not like, well, we got 5 million shirts in stock, so we can't do anything about it. We can actually change our patterns for the next time. It's better fitting. But we actually started internationalizing in end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And so after the whole DJ merchandise, we started getting a lot of requests for small fashion brands, like these brands who were too small, who were starting up, who didn't have any experience, and they couldn't go to Portugal or China or whatever to produce. So we helped them set up, and we did around 400 brands, I think, at the end. So we did a lot of these smaller hoodie and sweater and t-shirt brands, and a lot of them were actually from the Netherlands, so neighboring country. So Netherlands is above Belgium, and these people were driving 8 hours to our office, which was a living room with like one little rack of clothing. Like, I think they were so disappointed when they arrived. And we were sitting in the sofa, them with four people in the car, us two, and with a little rack of things. But it happened a couple of times, and we were asking them like, why you're driving here? Like, why are you driving so far? And say like, well, we like that we can come there, decide on the collection, and there's nothing like this in the Netherlands. There are no companies who are doing this. We were okay, that's interesting. And then we did a pop-up showroom. So we booked the ballroom of a hotel in Rotterdam, I think it was the first time. And we just sent all our Dutch clients like, okay, you can just hop in. We are giving some classes also on building a fashion brand. We are giving some trainings. There's a showroom. If you want to book a meeting with an account manager, just come. And they were sold out every time. So from morning till evening, it was completely full. The trainings, the showroom, the client meetings. So it was slam dunk. And at that point, we decided, okay, so if we are here, we are actually doing more business than if they have to come to Belgium. So then we decided in a positively naive way, let's just open a Dutch office. We hired someone. So one of our first clients joined the company to set up the Dutch office in Utrecht. And we started building from there. And that was the first time we actually had 2 locations. So then the complexity started because there is a lot of communication in the hallways. Like in the hallways, next to the coffee machine, there's a lot of things being said, like a quick question, some quick feedback because your colleagues are talking about it and you overhear it. And when you're on 2 locations, that's completely gone. There's a huge wall between that. So the only communication that moves is deliberate because you want the other party to know it. So there's a lot of these nuances of this culture going lost, lost in translation, actually. And so that was one of the biggest challenges we learned there. And then we started to start international meetings, failed a lot there in structure. And it's still a challenge, like how do you make it relevant for everybody at the table, but not make it boring for our people saying their numbers? How do you manage all this? So this is still a big challenge. Then we also started, and this is a really big success, our monthly meeting. Sometimes it's called a town hall or an all hands meeting or whatever. And this is around 45 minutes to an hour where we go deeper into all the countries, what's been happening, not really numbers related, but okay, there's 2 people joining here. The Dutch office moved to a bigger office building and so on. So like everybody's up to date from the company. And so that was a big challenge. Now we are with 6 people in Amsterdam. So that team is also growing. And that goes quite smoothly. And we travel, of course, a lot. So we have from management, I would say every country gets at least 1 visit every 6 weeks. Somebody like 5, 6 people of us are traveling often. And then we sit next to each other, just sometimes work in the same room. Not even discussing everything, but just being together, having these questions, having these informal conversations, having a lunch, having dinner in the evening, just to make it also a little bit fun, and the cultural effect, because you can discuss everything on numbers, but if the culture is completely different, it becomes a problem after a while. And then in 2020, in mid of 2019, we hired our first Polish employee, which is Daniel, and he was actually a supplier of ours first until the company went bankrupt, sadly, and because of raising energy prices, raising employee costs. It became way too expensive to do the mid-size in Poland. Like small companies and big companies are good, but mid-size became way too expensive and too complex. And then on Friday, he said, well, guys, I'm going to finish your orders and then it's done. And then we sent him, well, come join us. We need a head of production, actually. And on Monday, he agreed. So he's in the central management. He's a head of production. Or head of supply chain, or well, he's management level, director level, sorry. And he runs the Polish office, where we are with 12 people now. So that became a language for the first time, because Netherlands, we all speak Dutch, Netherlands and Belgium, But in Poland, we moved to English. So English became the core language of the company. So all internal information became in English, because if a sales guy updates his CRM in Dutch and the Polish purchaser has to check something, they can't read it. So everything has to be English. And that makes it, of course, a lot easier now. If you open new countries, everything is English. So it's not multilingual, it's all English.
Yeah. What was that transition? What was that transition between to get everyone who's been operating in Dutch to switch to English? Like, that seems like I mean, you know, I'm the American that everybody in the world just speaks English, right? But like, how was that switch? Like, it couldn't have been easy.
Well, it wasn't that bad, because we are quite good at languages here. So everybody already knew English. And in Poland, we were already hiring for people with good English knowledge.
Got it.
Because Polish is a whole other language. You can't understand anything. So we already hired specifically for that. And now people are getting used to it. So it hasn't really been an issue. Of course, our clients were already also international. So we sell in 45 countries. So this means that our salespeople already had to communicate in English. It just became the standard language in the company chat, in the company emails, in the company ERP and CRM system.
Got it. Oh man, I love that you're bringing up so many of these kind of like minor complexities that I don't think that most people would think about until you've actually lived it. So no, this is super helpful. What is before we get into some of the quick hitters, what's something you wish you knew when you started, or you would tell yourself when you started?
Oh, I would tell myself. I would advise myself to have a better financial education before I started. So that's really crucial. It's a lot easier to build a company than to change a company. So if from the ground up you already know, okay, these are the numbers or KPIs I need to hit, it's easier to hire for that, to grow. But of course, that's entrepreneurial journey, so you can't really look back like that. But that's an important one. Financial education, really start measuring everything from day one, even if it's quite difficult. And well, you have one call and one meeting, and well, you have 100% hit rate. Well, the data will adapt, but like, start measuring everything from day one. Talk to a lot of people, like the mentoring thing. Just talk to other entrepreneurs. Everybody is really happy to share. And in the very beginning, we were very scared, like, they are not going to talk to us, they won't talk to us, we are just starting, they won't spend their busy calendars for us. But they're actually quite open. Of course, you have to bring them some value and make it worth their while also, not financially, but just like having a good conversation. Or if your expertise, if you're a young person, maybe you can give insights in modern culture, which the 50-year-old or 60-year-old head of the board doesn't have feeling with anymore. It can also be valuable for them. Like, seek advice, seek information. And I think really thinking about the model and looking at, like, I think the two most important metrics are cost of acquisition, of customer acquisition cost, calculated from day one. So for the listeners who don't know it, it's just the total cost of what a new client, landing a new client costs you. So marketing plus sales costs. And then the customer lifetime value. So how much does a client bring in during his lifetime of being a client with you, which is also very difficult in the beginning, because of course, if you only exist a year, it's difficult. If you have long repeat cycles like us, like, the company doesn't order swag every week from you. Often it's maybe once a year, twice a year. The biggest clients order it 10 times a year from us. So that's a bit, and if you know that the customer lifetime is 3 times bigger than the customer acquisition cost, you have a good model. and everything else is just steering towards that. That would have been some advice that would be very useful for me, to actually start measuring these things. And of course, if you just work a little bit harder, you can make up for a bad month. But if you already get these metrics and know that, okay, if I'm going to hire a salesperson, this is going to be the impact on my cost of acquisition, then you will make a lot of smarter decisions.
Yeah.
So this is something, the bigger you get, the more it's numbers driven, and the more you will have to be able to translate the vision and the mission and the big dreams into very tangible goals for your team, because they will have to execute towards KPIs.
Yeah. That makes me feel so good, because I spent like 8 hours yesterday working on my CAC and LTV calculations for Yentl. Like, that's literally what I was working on. I was like, am I calculating this right? This number doesn't, okay, well, that means this, I have to have someone on the platform for X number of years for it actually to be profitable.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, that's oh man, okay. I'm doing something right.
Well, it took me 7 years to calculate them, so you already have a head start.
All right, Niels. Let's hit some quick hitters. So, what's kind of one or two books that you'd recommend other entrepreneurs read?
Oh, really good ones. I read a lot of books. I love everything from the Stoics, like the ancient Roman philosophers and Greek philosophers. So one of my favorites is The Obstacle is the Way.
Okay.
And I forgot who it's from. What's here? Ryan Holiday is a really good one. It's an easy read, but it's about a bit of mindset in entrepreneurship and the constant chaos it's actually in, and not taking things personally or being rattled by bad news, because you will get a lot of bad news, and you get great news and bad news in the same day. And Obstacle is the Way is a really good one in, okay, this isn't working, discovering what exactly isn't working, so not the symptoms but the disease, and then finding a way to solve it, and not taking it personally or being emotional about it. Like, just this needs to happen. So that's a really good one. Then How to Influence People, how to make friends and influence people, really classic. I think this was the first personal development book I read. Then bit more dreamy is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich is a good one. Also a classic. Think a bit more practical. Principles by Ray Dalio is a good one, a very good one. Very technical, very numbers driven, but there you learn like, okay, it's, the numbers are important. So that's a really good one.
It's so funny. I've read a couple of the books you mentioned, but Principles, I think that I am a 32-year-old version of Ray Dalio. Like, the way he talks and thinks through things and he describes them, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly so yeah,
it's an amazing book. It's an
amazing book. Oh man, that's a handful of good ones. I'm excited. I'm gonna have to read a couple of those.
That's a great list. And then often I try to read as much as possible, but not overread. I think there's something as overreading too. Like, you just want to hit the numbers, like I want a book a week, and you're not really digging into it. There's one book, me and Steven, we read it every year, and this is The Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harnish. We reread it every year, and I really started to enjoy rereading books, because the first time I read it maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and then now with all the insights you have now, you reread it and you pick up totally different things from the book.
I had a guest tell me he would read books and he would actually write like a mini book report.
Hmm.
and he had to call out, I think it was 8 things that he got from the book. And the number 8 stood out because, I can come up with 3 things that any book tells me. But like to have 8, you actually have to dig into the book a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like a good way. And I think it aligns with rereading books. Principles is definitely a book that I want to reread, especially now starting my own company. I feel like I'm going to look at things a lot differently. And it'll be much more relevant, I think, too.
Great read. For everybody listening, that's a must read.
Yes. Okay, what are you doing when you're trying to get away from Sunday? Like, what do you do? What are your hobbies?
Well, now it's renovating a house. And that's the complete opposite of what I'm doing here day to day. So it's really breaking walls and doing all the physical things and doing, I would say, 90% ourselves. So that's a great hobby. I also like to do martial arts. So Krav Maga, Israeli martial arts. That's a hobby of mine. And just spend time with my family.
Nice.
I have a very young daughter, about 3 years old. So it's seeing how she discovers the world and sees things. That's a really big part of disconnecting and relaxing.
I like it. If you were going to listen to the podcast, what type of entrepreneur would you be most interested in listening to?
In general, or
in general? Yeah.
I would say entrepreneurs who, because that's the phase I'm in now, who managed to scale the model or build the system. You have a lot of entrepreneurs who did 0 to $1 million or 0 to 5 million. I'm looking for the ones who did 5 or 10 million to 100 million. Yeah. Like they knew what worked, but they were clever enough to pour it in the numbers so it could be copied and scaled.
Yeah.
And I think these are 2 different types of people. You can evolve, I would say. But these are, I have a lot of friends who are like the 0 to 100K entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And they need a new project every time. And they are extremely successful in it. And they do the project, they or sell it or scale it or give it to somebody else to do it. But I'm looking for the entrepreneurs who got like, okay, we've got this product market fit. We got our pricing is okay. Our systems are okay. We already did it 2-3 times. We hit our revenue targets. How do we go now to the big leagues? Like, how do we go from 10 to 100?
Yeah. Got it. Okay. It's good to know. This is a great conversation. I learned a ton. And I think the listeners will too, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. If there are any questions from the audience, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I think the link will be shared. I also have a podcast, maybe a bit of self-promotion. About community building. So it's the world-class community show. And it's everything about community building, because that's a bit what we do through clothing, where we talk to, for example, the head of talent acquisition from Zalando. We talk to the creative director of Dr. Disrespect, like all these global experts in bringing people together around an idea or a vision, and to share some of that knowledge, because it's really behind the curtains right now. Everybody knows it's important, but nobody really knows how to do it, except for maybe their mom's Facebook group. They are sharing about pastries or something, but just like, how do you build as a company or as a brand a community internally or externally? So this is something I'm really passionate about, and the podcast goes about. So I'll maybe also share the link if people are interested.
Absolutely. Niels, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was an awesome conversation. I hope it was very valuable for your audience. And
it's great.
If you're interested one day, come back on my podcast and we'll talk about community building and everything related to that.
Love to. Absolutely love to.
If you found this video to be helpful, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment. If you're an entrepreneur and want to share your journey and be helpful to others, please hit us up on our social media channels, or you can shoot us an email at behelpfulpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. Be helpful.